The cabin smelled like cedarwood and stew, but something in the air felt wrong. The silence was too still, too heavy. The kind that warns a man before his life breaks in half. Ethan Crowley pushed the door open and stepped inside. At first, he didn't see anything unusual, only a pair of boots lying beside the rug where his father once sat each evening to clean his rifle. Boots that didn't belong to him. Then he heard it, a soft sound. A woman's voice, his wife's voice, whispering a name that wasn't his. Ethan moved down the hallway like a ghost drifting toward its own grave. The floorboards under his boots groaned in a familiar rhythm, but tonight the sound felt different. Each creak felt like another crack ripping across his heart. He opened the bedroom door. Clara, his wife, the woman carrying the child he had prayed for, lay tangled in bed with Luke Harris. Luke, the friend who once stood beside him during cattle drives, gunfights, and long winters when hunger felt like an enemy. Luke, the same man who helped him bury the wedding dress left behind by his second wife when she abandoned him without a single child. They froze when they saw him. Luke's face drained of color. Clara yanked the quilt to her chin, but her wide green eyes held both fear and stubborn pride. Ethan didn't shout. He didn't curse. He only stood there silent. Because sometimes silence hurts worse than bullets. "Get out," he said quietly. "Both of you, get out." Luke scrambled out of bed, dressing in a shaky blur, but Clara stayed sitting upright as if daring him to break. "Ethan, let me explain." "Explain." His voice cracked like dry timber. "Explain how my best friend is in my bed with my pregnant wife. Explain how the child I've thanked God for every night isn't even mine." Outside, the Wyoming wind howled through the pines, almost as if the land itself was mourning with him. Ethan had spent his whole adult life trying to escape. One truth, he could not father a child. His first wife, Mary, prayed for children until her heart broke and she ran off with a traveling salesman. His second wife, Rebecca, left him for a railroad engineer after years of trying with no success. And now Clara, his third wife, the one he married out of hope more than love, sat before him, carrying another man's baby. Clara lifted her chin. "This child needs a father who can give him life. You can't. Everybody knows it, Ethan. They whisper about you in town. You're strong enough to break horses, but weak where it matters most. I did what I had to do." Her words carved into him like a knife. "So you chose to shame me in my own home," he said. "I saved you," she replied coldly. "The town will believe the baby is yours. Your name will live on. Isn't that all you ever wanted?" He felt something inside him collapse. A truth he didn't want to face. He had married Clara for legacy, for a child to carry on the Crowley name. But legacy built on lies tasted like ash. "I want you gone by morning," he said. "Take whatever you need. Take the child, too. He was never mine." Ethan walked through Silver Creek like a man drifting between worlds. People stared at him with pity, the kind that burns more than cruelty. He ended up at the train station without meaning to. The 4:30 train from Denver hissed against the platform, steam curling around the wooden planks. That was when he heard it. A woman crying. Not just crying, but breaking apart. She sat alone on a bench, holding a telegram in both hands as if it were the last piece of her world. Her dark hair had come loose, falling around a face full of grief. She looked up when he approached, her storm-gray eyes red and swollen. "Ma'am," he said softly. "Do you need help?" "My husband," she whispered. He's dead." The telegram trembled in her hand. "Silver mining accident. Deepest regrets." Ethan lowered his hat. "I'm sorry for your loss. Do you have family here?" She shook her head. "No, I came for a teaching job. He was supposed to follow next month." Her voice cracked. He didn't know. He didn't know he was going to be a father. Her hand drifted to her stomach. Ethan felt the world shift. He had lost a child that wasn't his, and she had lost a husband who would never meet the child she carried. "I'm Ethan Crowley," he said quietly. "If you need a place to rest tonight, my cabin isn't far." She studied him, seeing the truth written across his tired face, and finally nodded. Back at the cabin, Grace Mitchell sat at his table, hands wrapped around a cold cup of coffee. She noticed the rumpled bed and the empty spaces where Clara's things had been removed. "Your wife isn't here?" she asked. "She's gone," he said. "Left today." Grace bowed her head, sharing a silence shaped by loss. When he asked how far along she was, she whispered, 4 months. Thomas would have been so happy. The pain in her voice made his chest tighten. "What about you?" she asked gently. "Children?" Ethan looked away. 3 wives. No children. Not one. Understanding filled her eyes, and for the first time that day, he didn't feel ashamed. He felt seen. "Mr. Crowley," she said softly. "What are you going to do now?" "I don't know." Grace hesitated, then took a shaky breath. What if we help each other?" Ethan's heart thudded. "How do you mean?" She met his gaze. "What if we got married?" The room went still, and Ethan Crowley felt his broken world shift toward something he couldn't name. Ethan stared at Grace as if the world had stopped spinning. The idea of marriage, after everything he had been through, felt unreal. Yet something in her eyes held him still. She wasn't asking out of hope or romance. She was asking out of survival. "You'd really do that?" he asked. "Marry a stranger?" "You're not a stranger," Grace said. "Not anymore. You're the man who helped me when you didn't have to. And I know what it feels like to have the ground pulled out from under you." Ethan swallowed hard. Life had beaten him down enough times to make him cautious, but Grace's voice held a quiet strength that steadied him. "It wouldn't be a real marriage." "Not at first," she continued. "More like a partnership, a way to protect each other." Ethan ran a hand through his hair. "Grace, I need to tell you something before you go any further." She waited. "My last wife, she was pregnant when she left," he said slowly. "But the child wasn't mine. She told me she did it because she needed a real father for her baby. Someone who could give her what I couldn't." Grace's eyes softened. "I'm sorry, Ethan. And now here you are," he whispered, "carrying a child whose father can never know him." "We're both alone," she said. "And both in trouble if we don't do something soon." She was right. The town would judge her for being a widow with no family, and they would judge him for being abandoned again. 2 broken people, 2 ruined reputations. Maybe together they could build something that wasn't broken. "Grace," he said quietly. "If we do this, the child would be mine in every way that matters." She nodded. "Yes, completely." The decision settled over them like the first touch of spring sun after a long winter. 3 days later, Ethan stood outside the Silver Creek courthouse with Grace beside him. Her dress was simple, but she looked steady, stronger than she had the day he found her crying at the station. She held a small bunch of wildflowers he had picked that morning. "You sure about this?" he asked again. "Are you?" she returned. He looked at her and felt something shift in his chest, a feeling he hadn't known in years. "Hope, more sure than I've been about anything in a long time." Inside, Judge Patterson performed the ceremony in 10 small minutes. Mrs. Donley and Sheriff Morrison stood as witnesses. Ethan held Grace's hands as the judge spoke, and for the first time in a long time, he didn't feel like the world was laughing at him. "I now pronounce you husband and wife," the judge said. "Mr. Crowley, you may kiss your bride." Ethan hesitated, unsure, but Grace gave a small nod. So he leaned down and kissed her, soft and gentle. It wasn't fire, but it wasn't empty either. It felt like the start of something steady. When they stepped outside, the Wyoming wind brushed against them, cool and clean. "So, Mr. Crowley," she murmured. "What do we do now?" "Go home," he said. "Our home." The drive back was quiet, but it was a warm quiet. Grace kept her hand on her belly, calm as the wagon wheels rolled over the dirt road. Ethan found himself glancing at her profile, each time feeling something in him loosen. When they reached the cabin, she gasped. "It's beautiful." "It's home," he said. "And now it's yours, too." That night, as she settled into the spare room and he lay alone in his own bed, Ethan stared at the ceiling. He had prayed for a child for years, prayed for a family, prayed for a chance to belong to someone. Now, unexpectedly, he had all three. Even if it wasn't the way he imagined. From the next room came Grace's gentle voice. "Good night, Ethan." "Good night, Grace." For the first time in years, he fell asleep without regret pressing down on him. Months passed. Grace's belly grew round and full. Ethan chopped wood, tended the horses, repaired the cabin roof. They talked more in those months than he had talked with any woman in his life. Their partnership slowly became a friendship. A quiet trust formed between them. Then one cold morning, Grace's cry shattered the dawn. "It's time," she gasped. Ethan ran for Doc Miller. Hours later, the sky had turned pale gold when the baby's cry finally broke through the cabin walls. "Ethan, you have a son," Doc Miller said, grinning. Ethan felt his knees weaken. Grace lay against the pillows, exhausted, but glowing with quiet joy. She held a small bundle wrapped in an old blanket. "Meet your son," she whispered. Ethan stepped closer, his hands trembling. The baby stared up at him with dark, serious eyes. "He's perfect," Ethan whispered. "He's ours," Grace said. And in that moment, the child felt like his fully, completely. "What should we name him?" she asked softly. Ethan smiled. "Thomas, after his first 6. Father, and after the woman who gave me back my life." Grace's eyes filled with tears. As sun spilled through the windows, warming the cabin walls, Ethan Crowley stood in the center of the room and felt something he had never felt before. He wasn't broken. He wasn't less of a man. He was a father. And this was the beginning of their real story.